Second, we can prevent jailbreaks, mass jailbreaks and other things by ensuring that we increase the humane condition under which we keep these inmates. And that's what we have done in terms of infrastructural intervention, to ensure that we upgrade the infrastructure to make them more modern. Mark you, most of these prisons are over 100 years old. They are inherited from the colonial period, and not much has been done until 2016, when this administration intervened by giving us enough capital outlay in order to ensure that we did enough in infrastructural upgrade of our prisons. And that has translated into having very solid structures which prevented, mark you, the Kotonkarfe episode, escape that occurred of almost about 13 prisoners was done because the building was done with a hollow block. And that is easy for the prisoners. Once they are getting, they bore a hole and they were able to escape. But now we have changed the entire pattern of our prison infrastructure, and I believe that with time we will not have anything. And then two, we have made access to justice very easy because we are conveying the inmates to and from the courts, and we have now reduced the tension that we have had before because of our inability to produce inmates to and from the courts when due. And also because we have reduced it by also ensuring that we provide some of the basic needs of the prisoners.
The Nigerian Prison Service have about 70,000 inmates across the nation prisons. Do you have the funds? Do you have the resources to handle this inmates, this large amount of inmates?
Under this administration, the prison service has been provided with enough. From 2016, the government has been gracious enough in improving our recurrent running costs, especially in provision of certain key areas that affects the entire prisons or the prisoners that are put under our care. One, in terms of medicine, there was a substantial upgrade in terms of our allocation in 2017 in purchase of medicine. There's also a substantial increase in that area where it affects the prisoners' clothing, the prisoners' beds, beddings, and the rest of them. And government has maintained the feeding of prisoners at 450 naira per prisoner per day. That has translated into a general improvement.
Now, you are talking about releasing 450 naira as your daily allowance to the inmates. So if 450 naira is the daily allowance, if you translate that, multiply that by the 70,000 inmates, that means you have about 31.5 million naira given to the inmates. Is this productive for the nation, for a nation battling with recession? Isn't this a cost-consuming measure?
You see, security is not very cheap. To secure a nation and to enable you and I do your business and go on daily basis to go to Channel's office in Lagos, and the rest of them, you need security. And therefore, perpetually, you need certain people behind bars. And therefore, it is never a cheap venture. It is always expensive in order to secure the nation, to allow the socio-economic activities to take place. However, realizing that there is a huge expenditure in terms of feeding the inmates, that's why when I came on board, we came up with a program of repositioning the prison farm centers of 17 in total in order to look at the way and the possibility of prison feeding itself in order to reduce this huge expenditure. We are also worried that huge expenditure has been expended. And that's why in 2017, we picked 3 farm centers as a pilot project to see how they can specialize in terms of comparative advantage.
What is the contribution of the inmates to the national GDP?
You look at the contribution of the prisons to GDP in terms of the ability of the prison service to keep the prisoners perpetually behind and under secure and humane custody for the large population, you and I, to go out our normal businesses. When the police arrests and when other arresting agencies also arrest, they take to court and the court bring them to prison. That is why you and I go free to walk around during the day and to go to sleep during the night and then wake up in the morning, go to our normal business. That's what it translates into. That is the GDP we have been able to provide.
Now, this is undeniably a high capital-intensive project, and some Nigerians are calling for the introduction of the alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Do you see this as the way to go?
The huge prisoner population that we have in this country, many of them could have ended not coming to prisons if we have alternative means of sentences. And that's why we advocate the issue of the implementation and domestication of the Administration of Justice Act 2015, because in it provides alternative to imprisonment. And the Controller General is empowered to be the chairman and ensure a structure of the probation board parole board is established. And once it is established, certain offenses needs just to go for other community sentences, to go for sweeping of gutter, or to go for any other normal something that is not. But there's the preference of taking people to prison. That is what brought us to where we are today, having a higher number of prisoner population. But mark you, that each agency within the criminal justice system has its own challenges. I want Nigerians to also be sure about that. While I know much about that of the prison service, the police will tell you their own, the judiciary will tell you their own, and the Minister of Justice will tell you their own. So there are challenges within the criminal justice system, and we need to address these challenges overall.
There is a very disturbing trend in the Nigerian prison service, and that's the issue of 70% of inmates awaiting trial. If you have 70% of 70,000 inmates awaiting trial, we are talking of about 50,000 inmates. So that's an indictment on the criminal justice system, and that's the major problem of prison congestion in the country. What are you doing to address the issue of inmates awaiting trial?
There are about, out of them, there are about almost 48,000 that are awaiting trial persons, and some of them have stayed in prison for quite a long time. I will not be here to tell you, because mine is just to ensure that they are secure and humane, so long as they are accompanied by a valid warrant. It is the responsibility of the other agencies to tell you what are their problems and why they are keeping them for a very long time, why they have not been able to determine their sentences.